acknowledgement that they're listening in.
So I brought this one here.
Dan, I guess. Dan, you there?
I am here. Dan Ford here.
All right, I'm gonna start, Dan.
Okay.
Clearing. All right, thank you. Good evening. We'll start this December 12th, 2023 Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. Start with our meeting minutes from November 14th, 2023. May I have a motion, please? Or Harrison? Approve. Seconds. Priscilla, seconds. Commissioner Harrison?
Look good to me. No issues.
Priscilla? Any other comments or questions from the commission? We're gonna need, I think, one alternate. I'm sorry, I forgot because, they're, well, is unable to vote, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you need to, let's see, I gotta look at the minutes. Was Janine, it's not here. Peter was here, so Peter could vote.
Why don't we? Right, he can't, Commissioner Randolph proceeded, can't vote on previous, so I guess that includes minutes as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Commissioner Collins, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, you're standing in for Commissioner Randolph this evening
For the minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, well,
as we go.
yeah, okay, there you
For most votes at least, let's put it that way.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor to adopt the minutes, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
7 passes unanimously. All right, next item is our organizational section. There's the election of officers. So we'll start with chairman for the year. I take any nominations for chairman? Commissioner Corsillo?
Nominate Chair Noonan to serve a second term as another term as chair.
Thank you. I saw Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I'm happy to your nomination. I think you've been very nonpartisan, you're fair, and I think you've been a great leader. So hope to see you again as chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Corsillo?
You've served admirably in the role. I think you've run the and effectively, and confident that you'll continue to do so if elected chair again.
Thank you. Thank you for those very kind words. Are there any?
Too soon.
No, that's okay. It's fine. Other nominations?
It's just for chairman.
Oh, sorry, just for chair. Okay, that's fine. Because if there is, that's fine too. All right, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Actually, you can still-
Aye.
Commissioner Randolph, yes, so. That's 7. Thank you very much for your trust, kind words. I will endeavor to live up to them this next year. Our next is vice chair, and I'll go out of order and like to make the nomination for Commissioner Corsillo for vice chair. Commissioner Levy, second.
Second.
Thank you. Tom, this is, I know, your first time, at least as a regular, but you've been very enthusiastic and very responsive as alternate, and even with our POCD recently. So I think you'd be a great choice for vice chair. Yeah, my support. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with now Commissioner Corsillo for the last year. He's had a very thoughtful approach and understanding of the applications. I know he's got 18 years of professional experience working on complex land use matters, which I think would serve him well if he's elected vice chair.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Comments? We put this to a vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Corsillo as vice chair, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
For some,
If you're not gonna vote for yourself, you're gonna vote for it. So that's 7 unanimous. Our next, you're welcome.
Yeah, no, it's been a privilege serving with you all for the last year and learned a lot and look forward to continuing to learn and.
Our next is secretary. And again, I don't often get to the position, so I will take my priority or privilege today. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Harrison as secretary. Seconded. Commissioner Braun seconds. That's the same remarks. You, great commissioner, very enthusiastic, prepared, diligent. Your thoughts have been very valued on the commission. I think you'd be great in this role, and I'm working with that.
I think Mr. Harrison is professional, reliable, and really dedicated to the best interests of the town. I think he'll do a great job as secretary.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Further comments? Move to a vote. All those in favor as Commissioner Harrison as secretary, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Oh, wow. Fancy.
Battlefield promotion. That's-
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll double your pay.
Next is reviewing and approving our meeting schedule for 2024. I didn't see any issues. Do you have it with you? See any major issues? This is for the whole commission in case anybody sees any issues with holidays. We've had an issue in the past with election day. That shouldn't be a problem. Anything with a major personal significance that could be a problem or professional.
Anybody know when the Jewish holidays are?
I
We
don't,
checked. There's no conflict.
I mean, it's all Tuesday, so I would hope we, yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, there's no, we checked the calendar. There are no holiday conflicts.
Okay.
Just so we're,
Any school vacations or?
I don't believe so. But again, this is the typical schedule. If you want to modify it, it doesn't prohibit the commission from adding meetings to the calendar going forward or changing dates. The only proviso there is it becomes a so-called special meeting if a date not on the approved calendar. But we have to have a calendar submitted to the town clerk.
If anything major arises, we can discuss it and adapt as needed. I suspect we're probably gonna need some special meetings for POCD discussions. That's something we'll work on as we move forward. But at the very least, not here, last call for any comments on this, or we can put it to a vote to approve. Well, I need a motion. May I have a motion? Sorry. Commissioner Corsillo,
Move to approve.
seconds. Commissioner Braun, seconds. Further comments? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Randolph is going to sit in for the next two because he's able to for these. Next
I'm sorry, I
item
didn't
is
hear that. Say it again.
Commissioner Randolph will be sitting in for these next two items.
Okay.
You're
I'll
relieved,
mute.
you're relieved until we get to old business.
All righty.
2405 Black Rock Turnpike, west of Shiraz, Kudari, for 100% release of a $23,425 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in the design commercial district. Mr. Wen?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this site is a gas station at the corner of Black Rock Turnpike and Brookside Drive. In January of 2021, the commission approved a special exception for the conversion of the garage bays that were there at the time to a retail convenience store. And there was also an additional gas pump island and canopy built. Bonded improvements primarily included new concrete driveway, apron, sidewalk, and drainage. This commission approved a 50% bond reduction back in April. And the engineering department and the tree warden report that the work has been completed. So we are therefore recommending 100% release of the bond.
I have a motion on the item. Commissioner Levy,
Move to release the bond.
is there a second? Porcillo, seconds. Commissioner Levy,
Based on the recommendations and reports of engineering and the tree warden, it looks like the work has been completed.
Commissioner Porcillo,
Agree.
or Commissioner Harrison.
A question, and I think the establishment looks really good. I would just ask, I saw that they are selling vaping paraphernalia. And they have to be registered with the state. Is there anything locally that we have to do? Or they're permitted to do that?
It is, as a retailer in the convenience store, there's no local.
I didn't realize that they were going to be selling that when we approved it, but okay. Very good.
Selling what? I'm sorry, I missed
It's
it.
vaping.
Oh, vaping.
Yeah.
Braun.
I seem to recall when we did this application, we were going to get some landscaping. Just from looking at it, I don't think they did the landscaping. Maybe it's a tiny bit wider than it was before, but there's nothing planted there.
There's the landscaping island that was approved that's kind of around the monument, the pole sign that's at the corner. There were 2 new street trees put in on
Street trees, I don't see them.
Brookside Drive, west of the driveway. The state didn't want, they narrowed the existing curb cuts. The curb cuts were wider, they were made narrow, so the grass strip is bigger, but the state, for sightline purposes, didn't.
What they've done,
They've done what's on the approved plan, yes.
they're listening. It'd be nice to put some shrubs between them and the uphill neighbor. Because the uphill neighbor has really nice landscaping up there. This looks kind of barren. Thanks.
Any further comments or questions from the commission? We'll put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
6 hands and an aye, passes unanimously. 1073 North Benson Road, request of Fairfield University for 100% release of a $110,315 bond pertaining to special exception improvements. Mr. Wyatt.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, on July of 2022, this commission approved a special exception for the construction of a new residence hall, which is Regis West, the Fairfield University campus. Bonded improvements were largely for on-site detention. Engineering reports that the work has been satisfactorily completed. Again, we're recommending 100% release. This is the dorm project that prompted the large berm planting along Round Hill Road. It was done. The largest trees that I've ever seen move around. So we're recommending 100% release. We believe all the bonded improvements have been completed.
Thank you. I have a motion on the item. Commissioner Levy,
Move to release.
second Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Levy,
Based on the engineering department report, as well as driving by and seeing
Yeah.
trees and berm, recommend a full release of the bond.
thank you. Commissioner Braun,
Yeah, when I first read this, I thought it was Faber Hall, and I was gonna say, we need more of a report on that, but this is where they built where they put those arborvitaes along Round Hill Road. And at first it didn't look good, but now it looks like they did a couple of other trees in front, like they had promised to make it look a little more natural than just a wall of arborvitae. So based on that, they've done what they needed to do, so.
any other further comments or questions to the commission? Let's do a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
6 hands and an aye, passes unanimously. Our next item is our closed executive session to discuss the pending litigation with Berkeley Road LLC. And a motion to go into executive session. Commissioner Harrison, seconds Commissioner Braun. Discussion on it, or we go to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
I'll abstain, Commissioner, and then I'll step off.
Fine, yeah, because I know you. Okay, so we have six, and then one abstention, but that's still, you know, for our executive session. So executive session. If we
Adjourn into
hall.
the next room.
Yeah, you must have just go.
We're unmuted.
Sorry for the delay. We're back in session. We ended executive session. Votes were taken and no action was taken. We'll move on to our next item, new applications for public hearing. 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield University pertaining to a proposed comfort station and storage buildings at Barlow Field in the AA zone. Mr. Went?
I have nothing to add. It's a new application that requires public hearing as it's described on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion. Porcillo,
Move to recommend to public hearing.
I have a second. Commissioner Randolph seconds. I said, public hearing is required. Do I have, Commissioner Ford on? So, right.
Commissioner Collins is on.
Commissioner Collins, is he back up now that, Commissioner Ford's not here, or does he go to somebody? Okay,
It's there.
he's there. That's a fair point.
Yep.
Commissioner Collins?
Yes.
We have an application, motion to approve to a public hearing, the next item, 1073 North Benson Road.
Approved to the public hearing.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? Let's do a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Commissioner Collins, a
Aye.
second ago. Aye, there we go. So passes unanimously. Commissioner Collins, you're still in on old business, which is next. 25 Melville Avenue, special exception, and special permit application of the town of Fairfield pertaining to the construction of 2 new pickleball courts at Tungus Hill Park in the resident fee zone. Mr. Wentz.
Mr. Chairman, the Parks and Rec Department is seeking to construct 2 additional pickleball courts in Tungus Hill Park adjacent to the 4 existing courts, which is a recommended improvement in their recently adopted Parks Master Plan. Small shade pavilion is proposed between the existing and proposed courts. When this hearing was initially held in October, concerns were raised regarding the proposed location of the access stair and handicap ramp from the upper parking lot. With respect to the intrusion into the hillside that is widely used for sledding in the wintertime. Concerns were also raised regarding the need for evergreen screening to help with noise attenuation, concerns about the drainage design. The plans were subsequently redesigned to provide pedestrian access from the existing lower parking lot and eliminating the disturbance of the sledding hill. Proposed evergreen plantings are now shown along Melville Avenue, and the drainage system has been redesigned to accommodate additional storm water detention as recommended by the engineering. A second hearing to discuss those revisions was held last month. The relevant standard conditions for your consideration for a special exception are as follows. Number 1, is the location, type, character, and size of the use of buildings in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood, and not hinder or discourage the use of adjacent property or impair its value. 2, is the nature and location of the use in buildings or structures such that there is adequate access for fire protection. 3, are streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic with provision for made for entering and leaving the site without creating undue hazard? And is the proposed use in compliance with the plan of conservation and development? That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
You're with Commissioner Randolph not being able to join in this, at least this time, because he's just seated today.
You've got,
Commissioner Ford not being here, we're going to need Commissioner Bukowski.
you've got 6 voting members. If you were not at the last, did you review the?
I did review this, yes.
So Janine then could be eligible.
Okay, so Commissioner Bukowski is sitting in then. Okay. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Levy,
To approve?
is there a second? Or so. Levy.
I think the town's revision of the proposal, adding the arborvitae's improving the drainage and relocating the access so as to not interfere with the sledding hill was a good response to the neighborhood concerns. There are already 4 pickleball courts there. And as we all know, it's a sport that's getting ever more popular, and there's a great demand, particularly among the seniors. But the concern about the whack sound is universal. But I think there's already 4 there, adding 2 more, but then adding the arborvitaes will actually mitigate the impact upon the neighborhood of even the existing. So I think in that sense, it's an improvement, and adding 2 more courts to the existing 4 is certainly in harmony with the recreational use of the property. I don't know that fire protection is an issue for pickleball courts here. Melville Avenue is certainly sufficient to handle, 2 more courts or 8 people playing at a time. And is it in compliance with the plan of conservation and development? Yeah, again, it's an appropriate use, consistent with what's been going on for many years in the park there.
Thank you. Commissioner Corsillo?
Yeah, I appreciate the town's responsiveness to the comments that the commission raised and that the members of the public who testify raised. I've been persuaded that it makes sense to add pickleball courts to a place where there are other courts already, given the social nature of the sport. And I think the application satisfies the considerations for a special exception. Good to meet you.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun?
Question for Mr. Wentz. And I don't know if I want to ask for a condition to be added. I need some information first. So I found out by researching the USA Pickleball Association, which is the governing entity for the sport, that there is now a quiet category for pickleball equipment, and it reduces the decibels from what it now is at 1100 to 1200 hertz and a near harmful decibel range of 85 when striking the ball, down to 600 and a decibel level below 80. And they're called it's called a quiet category. And it looks as though the national organization that governs pickleball has accepted this new technology. This is something that just came out November 14th. And there's a company that makes it called OWL, OWL Sports. And they're acknowledging that the noise is a huge issue because unlike tennis, you're hitting a ball with a paddle. And so I'm wondering
if I know I'm interrupting, I apologize. The one thing I need to caution us on though is using evidence that's outside the record. It's obviously behind the record that pickleball is loud. How much I can, we've heard enough of that. So I don't think it goes against what you're saying. I just would be mindful not relying too much on outside. If you have a question for a condition.
Yeah, here's my question.
That's
the background.
My only concern is that, yeah.
A condition of approval that these 2 new courts at least would have signs up saying, please use these quiet things that I'm sure most players are familiar with by now. Sound is loud. Everyone complains about it.
My response to that, I guess, would be if that's the extent of your condition, I think I think there was testimony from Anthony Calabrese that they already recommend that because there's 2 types of paddles. I don't profess to be an expert by any means, but as I understood it, there were harder paddles, there's softer paddles out there. So if the extent of the condition is to put signs up to recommend they use a softer paddle, that's, I think, manageable. I don't think we'd be in a position to enforce if somebody's not using a hard, soft paddle. There's no mechanism for us to be able to enforce.
I understand that.
Nor, similar to the hours of operation that was kind of explained by Mr. Calabrese.
It might speed along people pushing over. That's my thought.
So as long as it's a recommendation for some signs for people to consider that, I think that's something that the commission, if they think is warranted, could consider, as long as the expectation is we're not going to be throwing people out of there if they're using a hard paddle.
The noise. So I appreciate everything the town did to add evergreens and change the routing of the handicap pathway and not cutting down any trees. This would be something that would not be much of a condition. It would simply be put some signage up to point out that the USA pickleball group, USA Pickleball North America recommends using quiet pickleball rackets or paddles,
I mean, if they're
something
gonna,
like that.
signage can just simply be, using soft paddles, recommends soft paddles.
Like that, to make it visible to the public, and an official sign from the town.
You're asking for a condition of approval,
Yes.
or recommendation of
I
approval.
would say a condition of approval that they would put signs up. That's it.
Who's my movement?
That's me.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I would prefer that it just be a recommendation, just as the sign would be a request or a recommendation as opposed to a requirement. I think a recommendation to the town would likely be followed.
So you're amending to may have a recommendation of approval for that, the signage,
For the
that,
sign.
the sign as described. Commissioner Corsillo? Okay, so that goes in. Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Braun's condition, but I just don't know if this would be enforceable. It's certainly a nice thing to do, but based on some research here, the owl bracket only reduces noise, I think, by 50%. So
It's significant.
it's significant, but it's certainly not going to change all the noise issues. But I think it's okay as a recommendation. Is that what, or, so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what.
I just think it would be hard to enforce.
Well, the enforcement would be in putting the sign up, not making people use the rackets.
Right.
Simply as a matter of public policy to reduce noise pollution.
I just fear people outing each other. I don't know. I just.
No, it wouldn't be
imagining that.
enforceable against people, just the town would have to put a sign up. That's what I would like as a condition of approval.
Right now, though, I mean, declare, at least the movement and the second have, I guess, acquiesced it to be a recommendation only, not a condition. Somewhat of a meeting in the middle ground, so to speak. Mayor Bukowski.
I too, I echo the comments of my fellow commissioners as far as commending the town for listening to the points that we found to be challenging with these additional pickleball courts. I also agree that I think that it would be helpful, and I know that Fairfield citizens want to be good neighbors. So seeing a sign like that, and I do know that there is a movement with people acquiring these different pickleball paddles, which I'm not a pickleball expert either, but I think that sign would be a reminder to people. So yeah, I'm definitely I'm going to vote to approve this.
I support the application, echo the comments. It shows process works as far as back and forth give from a commission and an applicant willing to adapt to us, the neighbors. Can we put this to a vote? Clear on what we're voting on? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. 6 hands.
Aye.
And aye, so it passes unanimously. 301 Commerce Drive, special exception and coastal site plan application of Fairfield Bespoke Ventures LLC to establish a motorcycle and scooter dealership in an existing building in the Design Industrial District.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this site is on the southerly side of Commerce Drive, immediately adjacent and easterly to the United States Post Office. The site has an existing building that's 2 stories in height at the street front with existing offices, and behind that are existing high bay garages perpendicular to the street. There are existing concrete sidewalk, curb, and driveway apron improvements along Commerce Drive. There's an existing paved parking area providing 23 parking spaces. The rear portion of the site was previously utilized for contractor storage area. This area will now be utilized for vehicle inventory storage for the nearby Land Rover dealership. For this change, the engineering department is recommending that some modest additional detention be created by a rain garden or bioswale in the rear to provide some detention because of the existing compact surface. I will say that the applicant, I believe, has a preliminary proposal for that can easily accommodate that. So if you are otherwise inclined to accept this application, I would recommend that a condition would be considered that drainage detention be provided to the satisfaction of the town engineer. I don't think it's not a large system, and I think that could be accommodated rather readily. Otherwise, the existing parking satisfies the required necessary for a vehicle dealership. The special exception standards I quoted to you on the last application. One is the location, type, character, and size of the buildings and uses in harmony with and conform to the orderly development of the town and neighborhood. Two is the nature and location of the building and use or structures such that there's adequate access for fire protection. Three are the streets serving the proposed use adequate respective traffic, and is the proposed use in compliance with the POCD. In this case, there's no new construction here proposed. It's just retrofitting an existing building with no real major site improvements whatsoever. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Wyatt. May I have a motion on the item? Levy. Second, Commissioner Braun. Well, I should ask, approve with recommendations by
With
staff.
the recommendation of staff regarding creating a rain garden or bioswale.
Commissioner Braun, you're good with that?
Yeah, I think it satisfies
That's Commissioner Levy. So I know, I just want to make sure that the
condition, yes.
conditions, thank you. Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I think all the requirements for the special exception, there's already garage bays there. It's an area where there are quite a few dealerships. Recollection is to be primarily a motor scooter type dealership. So it's in harmony with the neighborhood there. There's adequate access along Commerce Drive, fire protection. There's not likely to be any traffic problems. These Vespas going in and out, and it's consistent with the neighborhood and the conservation development.
Thank you. Everyone.
Yeah, I think it satisfies all the requirements for a special exception. It's a great addition. And also being that I think I heard that it's one of not very many Vespa dealers in the area. It could drive other business to our town and the local restaurants. So I think it's a great thing. And I was also pleased that they're not removing any vegetation and they're actually adding a rain garden. So that was also a bonus for me. You're not removing any trees, just invasives.
When our motion is covering this coastal site plan application.
It is. It's our opinion. There's no there's a portion of the property is in a flood zone, but the building is not within it. There was a staff report. There really aren't any nearby coastal resources that will be impacted by this. So we believe.
I remember that as well. It's just drawing everybody's attention to the motion for granting the special exception with conditions and the site plan. Okay. Further comments from the commission?
I
Can I
believe
make
I'm
a
on
comment?
voting.
Absolutely. Commissioner Pikowski and then you, Commissioner Collins.
I was not at the last meeting, but I did review and I.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Collins, you're up.
Yeah, I think I asked when they proposed it about they're just kind of exclusively Vespa when probably the majority of the scooters in town are other models, Korean and whatnot. Did I not get that they were not going to service and only exclusively Vespa?
I think their testimony was they would prefer to be exclusively Vespa, but they realized that they're a business, would not turn away business from other scooters if they were able to service them.
Okay,
Right?
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? Commission? Again, I support the application for the reasons stated. It's a good one for the area. Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thanks, everyone. Happy to
Take care. So our next item is our public hearing, 110 Woodrow Avenue, zoning compliance application of 22 Long Lots Lane LLC for a 23-unit residential development pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes. I'm going to start off to the public joining us physically or remotely. This is a application pursuant to 830G. It's been my practice the last few years to leave public comment open. As we'll find out, I'll ask Attorney Fallon, you don't mind going through the law requirements are, that will be kind of indicative as to why I leave the public comment open, as it is incumbent on the commission. Should we want to deny? And I know we're not prejudging it, but it is incumbent upon the public and the commission, if whoever's in opposition, to present facts, substantial facts, if not expert testimony for positions in opposition. And most members of the public may not know that. It certainly was new to me when I came, and I want to make sure that the public is aware of, after listening to the application, what it entails, and knowing what the law is, and any statements in opposition would need as far as substantial evidence, if not, again, expert testimony. We will have public comments after this. That will be left open to the next hearing. Anybody who's here physically or remotely can certainly come forward on public comment. I would ask, though, that not come forward twice, or if you do come forward twice, we don't repeat. So we give everybody an opportunity to speak, and we're not duplicative. We'll worry about that later. I'll turn it over to Attorney Fallon. And again, if you don't mind going through the legal aspect of it, that will be
Will we be curfewing tonight at your normal time? I just want to give the commission some sense of.
yes.
10 o'clock.
Curfew is at 10 o'clock.
Okay, because so the commission and members of the public are what, I think that time that we have probably afford us an opportunity to get through our presentation in chief.
That's fair.
So we'll do our best to do that.
And that would be even better for timing.
Yeah,
too, so.
that's my point. Okay, for the record, my name is John Fallon. Good evening. I'm representing the applicant here tonight. Welcome to the new commissioners. And let me talk a little bit about the application. As the chair said, we're proposing to construct a 23-unit multifamily residential development at the property located at 110 Woodrow Avenue. Emmeline, could I ask you just to put up that?
30th?
My goodness, you're so efficient. I'm sorry. But just to give you some sense of the area, this is 110 Woodrow. As you can see here, you're probably familiar with it. It's at the corner of Pease Avenue. It's immediately adjacent to I-95. That's the ramp, I-95-19. The property is zoned in the design commercial district. We blew this up to give you some sense of the diversity of options here. Obviously, there's the Dunkin' Donuts across the street, Fred Astaire Dance Studio, Fred's Car Wash here, DeGenic's Auto Mechanics, Grey Goose, Del Mar. The exhibit speaks for itself, but we wanted to give you at the outset some feeling for the area here, and you'll probably familiarize yourself with the property during the course of the proceedings. The development, as I said, is for 23 units. It consists of 14 one-bedroom units and 9 two-bedroom units. It is permitted and proposed pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeal Act, better known as Section 8-30G. In the material that I provided you, that bound volume, which I'll be referring to from time to time, at pages 5 through 27, we do have our affordability plan that is submitted as part of this application in accordance with the statute and the statutory requirements. What the affordability plan provides is pursuant to 8-30G that 30% of the units, 7 units, will be deed restricted as affordable for a period of 40 years. Again, in accordance with the statute, 4 of those units will be reserved for persons earning less than 60% of the state median income. That being, as proposed under the affordability plan, 3 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit. 3 of the units will be reserved for persons earning less than 80% of the statewide median income. That being, in this case, 2 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom units. Also, the affordability plan makes provision that at least one of the affordable units will be ADA compliant. Based upon our considerable experience, and I would say this commission's as well, over the last decade, it's been found that these units, be they the market units or the affordable units, are going to be occupied primarily by people over 50 and or younger people, generally individuals who are connected to in Fairfield, want to stay in Fairfield, want to continue to make personal and economic contributions to our very vibrant town. We have all read, every day it seems, about the crisis of affordable housing in the state of Connecticut. And although I think Fairfield and this commission has largely helped and tried to address this, it is still a crisis in Fairfield. And all you have to do is examine how quickly these affordable units, when they become available, the waiting list is established, and how so often so many of the people on the waiting list are in fact individuals with connections long-term to our town. And that's because, as I point out in my material, only 3% of our housing units in Fairfield, as of right now, are affordable. And as is pointed out in the material I submit, we are at the lowest percentage of affordable units of the 22 block grant entitlement communities in the region. The material that I submitted with the application package has a lot of material in it, especially from pages 32 through 77, which is part of this record, to document the need for affordable housing that continues to be very dire in Fairfield. And note that that availability of affordable housing in Fairfield is particularly pronounced in the Southport section of our community. So if you look at the experts from the 2022-2027 affordability housing plan that are at page 7 of my material, they speak for themselves. And I'm not going to read them all to you. You have the record, and I know in your due diligence you will. I'm getting a little feedback.
Somebody's, okay, it's on mute now.
Peter, if he can mute himself.
Thank you.
You just did.
And just some of the comments that were made, and this is a document that was promulgated in May of 2022. The cost of housing continues to outpace income, and the number of people affected by the unaffordability of housing in Fairfield continues to grow. While the town has made progress, the unaffordability of housing for people of families of modest incomes continues to grow. More housing options and choices are needed to meet the changing housing needs and desires of older population, younger residents currently shut out of the housing market, and current and future residents. According to the Fairfield County Housing Needs Assessment, almost 1/3 of the households in Fairfield are considered cost burden. These are households that are already living in Fairfield. According to the United Way's Alice metric, more than 1/4 of all households in Fairfield, 28%, are likely struggling with the overall cost of living. These, again, are people who are living in Fairfield now. The 608 state recognized affordable units in Fairfield are not enough to meet the needs that presently exist. I could go on. And what I give you also stretches all the way back to the mid-1980s, right up through 2010, 2015. But I focus on the most recent pronouncement, not by some state entity in Hartford, but by your fellow volunteer servants here in Fairfield, and that being the Affordable Housing Committee and their Affordable Housing Plan, because all of these quotes for this record comes from your own Affordable Housing Committee. Now, the project you'll hear about tonight, we have James Jameson here, who's our architect. He'll give you an overview of the proposal in a minute. But suffice it to say that its basics are, it's a 29,162 square foot building. Based upon the conferences and commitments that we've made to the fire marshal and the fire chief, it will be fully sprinklered with NFPA 13 sprinkler system. It goes without saying, and this will become important when I talk about the legal underpinnings of 8-30G, that the proposal complies in all respects with all aspects of the applicable state fire and building code. We have worked diligently with the fire department with regard to the location of the building and its construction to ensure compliance with all building and fire code requirements. The building itself, the one-bedroom units will range in size from 738 square feet to 880 square feet, and the two-bedroom units will be 1,180 square feet to 1,432 square feet. A total of 30 parking spaces are provided. Let me speak to parking, which is always a matter of consideration in these applications. We propose a parking ratio of 1.3 per units. We are confident this developer is a local developer with a strong track record in Fairfield. Two projects recently completed and now occupied on Old Field Road that this commission approved. And we're confident that this parking, as we propose it, will meet the needs of our residents. I'd also point out that as a legal matter, the court judicially has found that a parking ratio of 1.2 is sufficient to address the considerations of safety as 8-30G applies them. And that's the Garden Homes Management case. And that was the case involving the 95 unit affordable housing development to be built on Bronson Road. And through both the Superior and the Appellate Court level, one of the issues in the case was parking adequate at 1.2 because of concerns that were raised by the commission at the time, respectfully, concerning the lack of on-street parking on Bronson Road, et cetera. The court found that the ratio of 1.2 parking spaces per unit satisfied the standard of 8-30G. We did have a code enforcement review meeting here on September 5th of this year. A copy of the code enforcement minutes are submitted at page 28 of the application package that I gave you. It goes without saying that all comments and recommendations of the code review have been addressed and complied with. And as I've said before, the building construction complies with and or exceeds all requirements of the state building and fire code. You have in your record, I provided to Mr. Wendt, a final sign off in the form of an email from Mega Jane of the engineering department dated September 19, 2023. Wherein she confirmed that all of her questions that were raised at and after the code meeting had been addressed by our engineer, who you'll hear from today, Mr. Avon Bauer. We also received approval in May of 2023, a unanimous approval for our sewer connection for the WPCA. I would want to point out with regard to that, and I'll just pass these down if I could, Kathy. Could you pass these down? These are the minutes of the approval of the WPCA in May of this year. And I do ask you to take note, because I think, again, is relevant to the process and the context here, that the WPCA approval approved 42 bedroom units at this location. Our project that is in front of you tonight obviously has evolved. We didn't just come in here and say, let's put 23 units on this property. The original plan envisioned 40 units, and that's what the WPCA approved. We then had subsequent meetings, as I said before, with the fire department, the building department, the engineering department, and we moved from, I think at some point, 30 units to 27 units, and then to further address considerations with regard to the layout of the building. we came to the 23 units that are in front of you tonight. So I just point that out particularly because I want you to know that this was an evolving process and that we have sensitively addressed the questions and needs of this site to ensure compliance and satisfaction of the various town departments. Indeed, if you look at the code review minutes from the fire marshal comment in the code minutes of September 5, the fire comments include, quote, nice access to building and water supply. Hydrant is across the street. Quote, requires NFP 13 sprinkler system, which I said as we did. And then, quote, exits are good for all floors, close quote. So that is part of your record too, in terms of the fire department. We had a traffic access and impact study that was prepared and submitted. Mr. Steve Cipolla of Hardesty and Hanover is here tonight. He'll speak in summary fashion with regard to the traffic report, which is also in your material at page 78. I'll steal his thunder, or at least set up his testimony, if I may, because I know traffic is always an issue with respect to these applications. The traffic analysis confirms that this development will generate a total of 9 and 12 vehicle trips during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon peak hours. That translates to approximately 1 vehicle every 8 or 9 minutes, thus accounting to less than a 1% increase in traffic. Let me be very candid, and we've had this conversation in the context of other applications, be they housing or commercial, for example, on Black Rock Turnpike. I am not here to tell you that the Interstate 95 interchange isn't busy and that Peace Avenue and Woodrow can also be impacted by proximity to that interstate. I'm not here to tell you that if there's an accident on I-95 or it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, this is not necessarily this is somewhat necessarily a difficult area with regard to traffic. What I am here to tell you is, especially in the context of 8-30G, which I will review in a second, is that the increase of 9 and 12 vehicle trips during those peak hours, 1 car every 8 or 9 minutes, an increase of less than 1% of traffic during those peak times, does not create a public health and safety issue that provides a proper basis to deny an 8-30G application. It's really as simple as that. I refer to it sometimes, and I have in other contexts as well, up on Black Rock Turnpike, as the drop in the bucket theory, okay? This is a busy intersection. You can see our volume trips, but we're not adding any significant or substantial or impacting traffic to this particular, through this particular development. The accident.
I guess your thought is even if these numbers were double, 18 and I know it's only 23 units, 24, and even if you doubled the peak hour travel, maybe you're up at 2%.
Correct.
And still a drop in the bucket in your mind.
Correct.
The applicant's
Correct.
decision.
So I know, and with respectfully to neighbors of interest, people have submitted pictures to you where, you know, there's probably an accident on I-95 and there's cars on Peace Avenue. I don't dispute that does happen occasionally, but I will say that the record here has to be focused on whether or not this proposal will impact traffic safety in a manner that is a proper basis to meet your burden to deny this application. And I just don't think that is all the case here. Now, the accident history is found at page 2 of the report. And as you'll see, there are no reported accidents on Pease Avenue at the intersection of Woodrow Avenue and the Interstate 95 southbound off-ramps reported in the last 3 years. So again, as I said before, the existing traffic volumes that exist in the area provide a context for the assertion that what we are doing here is simply a drop in the bucket in terms of the negligible additional vehicle trips that we'll be adding. We also, obviously, in the traffic report, address site access. And I think the key point there is we exceed the required both ISD and SSD, which Steve will explain to you, but we have safe sight lines that meet the standards that would be applied for such analysis. Steve will give you his own findings in terms of the potential traffic impacts, but in essence, basically what he finds is, and I quote, "The results of the site traffic generation estimates indicates that there will be a modest increase in traffic due to the proposed development of 9 and 12 vehicle trips ends during the weekday morning and weekday afternoon periods respectively. No more than 8 vehicles are estimated at any intersection approach. The proposal of the 23-unit residential development on this vacant parcel is anticipated to result in insignificant, if any, impact on the adjacent surrounding roadways during the weekday morning and weekday peak hours." Couple of other key points. I said at the outset, this property is located in the design commercial district. It is not located in a residential zone. As you are aware, under your regulation, section 12.4, permitted uses in the design commercial district.
It's not a district, it's a zone.
Include business and professional offices, medical and dental offices, clinics, hotels and motels, indoor recreational facilities, retail stores, veterinary hospitals, restaurants, schools, churches, day nurseries, gasoline stations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these uses that I've described would most likely provide more significant traffic generation during peak hours than the 9 and 12 units that we approach. Also, I think important for the record, I made this for everybody. This site, I don't mean to make you my man away.
Let's have a tip later.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I'm handing to Commissioner Braun is the package of material, including the traffic report that relates to an application made in 2010 with regard to this property for a medical office building of almost, it was 5,500 square feet, parking below, and it was approved in 2010. It was not built, but it was approved by this commission after public hearing. What's interesting, and the reason I gave you the traffic report that you can look at your pleasure, is if you look at their estimates of peak traffic during the morning and evening hours, it's higher at 15 during those 2 peak periods than our peaks, which, as I said, are 9 and 12. And interestingly enough, if you look further at the study, which was done, I think, in 2008 or 2009, the background traffic, in case you're wondering, is similar in range. Under the in the morning peak, the report that you have there for the medical office building showed existing traffic during the morning peak at 778 trips. We show 786 trips. And in the afternoon, the 2009 traffic report shows existing peak under current parking of 401. We show 444. So the point I'm making is, again, the record should indicate that this site was approved for a medical office with a higher volume of traffic during peak hours. And in fact, the underlying existing traffic was quite similar and it didn't change. So I think that is also relevant. So that's just an overview with regard to the park. Now, with regard to 8-30G, and Commissioner Braun, I promised last time, as the chair asked me to do, and I would want to do anyway, I want to take a few minutes before we go to our presentation by our consultants to talk about 8-30G. And I do that not to preach to the commission, because the commission is sophisticated and very much aware of this statute. But I do it, one, because we do have some new commissioners. I'm sure they're well versed in it as well. Number two, I have to do it for the record, because I want the record to be clear that the legal underpinnings of 8-30G have been established. And thirdly, I do it respectfully for the public, so that they can understand the process that we are all engaged in here and what this state statute requires and how this state statute has been interpreted by our courts. So 8-30G, and this, what I gave you is just a summary of what I'm going to be talking about. What 8-30G says, that if you have a qualified 8-30G affordable housing project where 30% of your units are deed restricted for 40 years, that the burden shall be on the commission to prove, based upon the evidence in the record, that the decision from which such an appeal is taken and the reasons cited for such decision are supported by sufficient evidence in the record. The commission shall have the burden, this is a quote from the statute, to prove, based upon the evidence in the record, compiled before the commission, that one, the decision is necessary to protect a substantial public interest in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider. B, such public interest clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing. And C, such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. Over the years, since 8-30G has been established, our courts have taken the opportunity to expand upon and explain what that standard really means. And I give you in the material I just handed out a number of citations. The first one is from that Eureka case that says, this is our Supreme Court, that there is more than a mere, to establish a proper denial. Not that I'm assuming you're going to deny it, but I want the standard to be clear. You must determine whether the record establishes that there is more than a mere theoretical possibility of specific harm to the public interest if the application is granted. The court became even more pronounced, the appellate court, when it faced the Garden Homes case. This is a Milford Garden Homes case, where, and I quote, the record must establish more than a mere possibility of harm to a substantial public interest. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. That's the essence of the burden and the statutory and case law requirement, and it bears repeating. The record must contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application is granted. The court goes on to say mere concerns alone do not amount to sufficient evidence to support the denial of an affordable housing application.
Attorney Fallon, you've seen, I think, have preliminary emails from the public. Of note is traffic concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, members of the public and their inputs like that is helpful to the commission, particularly in regular applications that deal with special permits or special exceptions. Can you go into how those factual observations of current traffic would fit into the legal parameters that you're discussing?
Yeah, I have
in your humble opinion.
Yes, I would.
I assume it's humble, but
My opinions are always humble. Yeah, I mean, I think I would go back to what I just said though, and then give you a few examples. The record has to contain evidence as to a quantifiable probability that a specific harm will result if the application isn't granted. So mere concerns alone about traffic congestion and whatnot do not satisfy that standard. There are cases, and I'm going to go back to the question you just raised.
that's a fine, yeah.
No, but you'll see more because, for example, in the West Hartford Interfaith case, which is one of the older cases, but it made very clear at the outset that possible problems due to the proposed density of the site do not outweigh the need for affordable housing. Another case, Town Close, an appeal was sustained where the record did not sufficiently support the commission's reason for the denial that traffic generated by the development and the size of it as proposed at the proposed location was sufficient to outweigh the need for affordable housing. If you read that case, there was a concern that the streets were busy and that this development was going to make the streets busier. And again, my two-pronged answer to that is, one, we're having a very negligible impact, 9 and 12 vehicle trips during morning and afternoon peak hours. And number two, all these cases stand for the proposition that facts that you're going to have congestion or additional congestion doesn't rise to the level of, to use the language of the statute, a documentation of a public health and safety matter that outweighs the need for affordable housing. I'll give you another good example that's not in the material. We had a case where we did an 8-30G application off of Kings Highway, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. One of the testimony that was offered there that was coming out of the intersection road where the development was, someone during the morning peak hour, rather than having to wait to make a right-hand turn out, which was then taking that movement about 6 or 7 seconds, was going to have to wait 54 seconds. And members of the public said, that's public health and safety. People are going to be trying to, slip out into traffic, against traffic, et cetera, et cetera. Got to the court, and the court said, traffic inconvenience does not amount to a matter of traffic safety sufficient to outweigh the need for affordable housing. And this, therefore, they sustained the approval of the application. So that's, to answer your question, I think that traffic in and of itself does not provide a proper basis to deny an affordable housing application. And certainly when the traffic increases at the very modest level that we are proposing here, there's absolutely no basis for that. Just a few others. Again, this is Avalon Bay, claims by a zoning commission about inadequate gaps in traffic to allow drivers, this gets to the point, this was a different case, but this allowed drivers to safely exit from a proposed development on a road with a high traffic volume, and safety concerns for children at nearby bus stops were merely speculative and not supported by sufficient evidence in the record to create a probability that that harm would occur. Therefore, the evidence was not sufficient to sustain the denial. The fact that the proposed, this doesn't totally technically apply here, but it's interesting. The fact that the proposed affordable housing is not consistent with the surrounding residential neighborhood is not sufficient basis for denying an 8-30G application. Here, I think this document speaks for itself in terms of where we're located. So that's just, there's other cases in there that I cite, but I don't want to take up too much of your time with that. But I think that the record, the commission is well aware of the standard that's applied here. I understand, as I've said to you before, the people don't like this statute. I am not here to be an apologist for 8-30G, but I'm not here to apologize for it either. It is the law of this state, and it is based upon the belief of the legislature that we have an affordable housing crisis in town. And though everything is imperfect, there has to be a manner statutorily to address it. And the statute and the case law that interprets the statute, I think it makes it very clear in this case, at this location, with the amount of traffic that we're talking about, which is inconsequential, that there is not a proper legal basis to deny the application. So let me get to our presentation.
Any
If I,
questions for Attorney Fallon?
I'm around, so I'm not.
Of course, yeah, but if we're gonna make a switch, might as well ask for questions now. If not, go ahead.
Okay, we have basically three presenters tonight. Avon Bauer of Casitas Engineering is gonna come up here and take the chair in a minute. He's gonna review with you the existing conditions and our proposed site plan. James Jameson, J.A. Jameson Architects, is our architect. He'll give you an overview with regards to our exterior architectural design, basic interior floor plans. And then Steve Cipolla of Hardesty in Hanover, as promised and referred to, will give you a brief overview of the traffic report that we have submitted. And I will get out of your way here, Ed.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Avon Bauer. I'm a project engineer with Casitas Engineering. We're based out of Fairfield, Connecticut, up on Black Rock Turnpike. I just want to go over a little bit of the background of the site. Currently, there is a significant ledge outcropping that exists on the northern portion of the site, which is going to be taken down to level everything into a single parking garage underneath the building. As you come down about a quarter of the way through the lot, it gets very flat where you'll see there's a gravel parking lot that's used at the time. As that area gets flatter, it comes down to Pease Avenue, where everything along Pease drains down in that general direction. City water, sewer, and the natural gas are available in the street along Woodrow Avenue. We obtained the WPCA approval, as Attorney Fallon said, on May 17th for up to 42 bedroom units. We are, however, proposing 23 residential units with 30 parking spaces provided. Part of these parking spaces, you can see here, there is a handicap, two different handicap spots, one directly adjacent to the entryway to the building. And 3 of these parking spaces will also be equipped with an electric vehicle charging station as well. We are also proposing 2 new ADA compliant sidewalk ramps, as well as a 6-foot sidewalk that's going to go along the entire frontage of both Woodrow Avenue and Pease Avenue across the driveways as well. There are 2 driveway entrances. The one to the southwest here is a 2-way entrance, which will allow for traffic in and out of the parking area, which is located underneath the building on the bottom floor. There's a separate driveway entrance to access the refuse area and some of the things on the side that may need to be accessed as well. The last parking space has been blocked out to create a turnaround space. So if you were to go into the building and there is no parking available, you're able to safely maneuver in and out without having to back out of the building the entire way. There's also a retaining wall that we are proposing that will go along the northern and eastern portions of the property. This is to create that stable parking structure underneath. The retaining wall's maximum height is 12 feet high, and I know one of the issues with the zoning during the code enforcement hearing was the concern over the height of the wall. So we're proposing a fence along the top to ensure that there's no access to it from the upper side, so anybody doesn't fall down. The runoff from the driveway and the roof are directed to 3 different sets. So, 3 sets of 48-inch high concrete galleries, which have as the primary basis for our drainage design. The drainage was designed to mitigate the 2 through 100-year storm rates and volumes. And prior to discharge to the catch basin at the corner of Woodrow and Pease Avenue, there is a 4-foot diameter downstream defender, which is a water quality volume treatment, which is in addition to the water quality that is also provided inside the drainage units themselves. The drainage units are designed to act as meter structures to mitigate intense flows from coming off the building and impacting the street drainage system negatively. As well, the other mitigation impacts we have is a silt fence that will run along the entire downstream portion of the property where all activity is going to take place, as well as mud tracking pads at both driveway entrances and protected stockpile areas to avoid any siltation runoff from reaching the street. As Attorney Fallon mentioned, I'm going to be here tonight as well, so I'd be happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Yes. Thank you, Avon.
Mr. Braun, did you have a question? Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
Which direction does the water flow now as a vacant property? And is there any impervious surface on the property now, and how will that be affected by the development?
So the only surfaces on the property now that would be considered impervious, there is some ledge up here which doesn't allow water to flow through. But it flows from the north where there is a ledge outcropping down towards Pease Avenue. So we're not changing the direction of any of the flow. All we're doing is collecting all the increase that we are, that will be established with the building and the driveway, which will be collected through the slot drains and through roof leader pipes that will collect the runoff from the roof itself and direct it to the stormwater detention systems.
How much is the impervious surface increasing from what and to what?
So we, as part of our analysis, we didn't account for any of the existing impervious surfaces there. The reason we did this is it's a more conservative manner. You're going from a value that is going to be lower at its base because there's no impervious surface. And we've completely designed everything to meet the rate and volume, both for up to the 2 through 100 year storm.
That's a detention system, right?
Yes, correct.
That holds the first, how much?
That will hold the first inch. I believe any excess that will come through the meter structures is going to be handled through the downstream defender for any additional water quality concerns.
And is there any storm that could take place where it would overflow the whole capacity of the whole system?
Nothing like that has been analyzed. The town standards go from the 2 through 100 year storms.
Explain what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. So a 2 year storm would be a storm that happens one every 2 years. A 100 year storm is a storm volume that would happen once out of every 100 years. So nothing beyond a 100 year storm event was analyzed for this, and the system has the capacity to handle
So a
it.
100-year storm event, just explain how the system works. If there's a 100-year storm event, the water goes onto the roof,
Yep. It will go.
onto the parking, whatever the driveways, whatever the impervious surfaces are, right?
Correct, yeah. So it'll be collected from the roof. It'll go into the downspouts, and then underground there will be roof leader pipes, which is usually the green pipe that you'll see on the side of job sites. And those will direct them from the entire roof area, all collected, to go into the various drainage systems based on the routing that they
And
are.
those drainage systems, repeat what you said, do that infiltrate into the earth below it, or does?
Correct. Yeah, there's soil beneath that we found to be very suitable. It's a very sandy material. So the water that gets into those units will just percolate into the ground. Anything that were to overflow is collected into these meter structures. And in order to avoid any damage to or overload, to the street drainage system, we've metered that flow back so that,
What does that mean, meter it back?
so it basically holds back a little bit amount so that it has time to drain through the pipes that are in the street. So you're not just effectively dumping a bucket of water.
So it goes from, see the corner there, right there, where does it go from there? Does it go into the town stormwater system right there?
Before it does that, it goes into each of these independent drainage systems. So
What are those
those,
systems? Are those detention basins?
effectively, yeah, they are 48-inch high concrete galleries. They're 4 feet high by 4 feet wide by 4 feet long boxes of concrete that are hollow on the inside.
There's it doesn't percolate down from there, or
Yep.
does it?
It percolates down and also in the sides as well. They have openings. That's what these box shaped things are.
And that's intended to hold X amount of water for X amount of time?
And not only hold, but also treat the water quality and drain it down into the soils where it naturally would have gone had this development not taken.
So how many hours of rainfall do those structures hold? Like if it's raining, I mean, is it a whole day of rain, 2 days? Like,
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure because that all depends on the intensity of the storm. Like I said, we had analyzed everything to not cause any negative impact to the street drainage system from the 2 to 100 year storm event. So up to a 100-year storm event, this system meets the town standards for.
so if it's a 500-year storm event, will the water go after that? If it overflows the system, where does it go?
So yes, so all these systems do overflow under these conditions. It's a matter of how they are detained back. And it goes directly into the street drainage system through the catch basin.
Right on the corner of Pease, and what is that?
And Woodrow, this is Woodrow right here, this is Pease. And the reason we did it this way is so that no water is going to come out of these slot drains from the driveway and go onto the roadway, which might cause additional issues.
So if there's a 500-year storm and it overflows the system, where does the water exit your system here? Where does it go?
It's designed to exit through this pipe here and down
It
into
goes
the catch
in the
basin.
corner of Pease and
and Woodrow.
Woodrow, and then where does that go into the stormwater system?
It goes into the, the town stormwater system.
And into Long Island Sound.
And wherever that winds up.
Question for you here. Okay, can you?
Hold on, is Commissioner Braun, are you done?
Sorry.
Well, because I've read that we might need to look at 500-year storms or more than 100-year storms, so.
Well, the drainage standards set by the town for developments like this are the 2 through 100, which is what we.
I understand that.
We just asked the
I have another
question.
question though.
Commissioner Braun, though, be fair.
So-
Commissioner Braun, the town does 100-year storm, so I mean,
I'm just asking questions.
I understand, but I mean, we have other questions and I'd like to keep. it
Can I get an answer to my question about the increase in impervious surface? Would you be able to get back to us with that?
The increase in impervious?
Yeah, from what it is now to what it will be?
So as I mentioned, we didn't account for any impervious on the site as a conservative manner, and the new impervious totals 12,375 square feet.
12,375?
Yes, that was detailed in the drainage analysis.
What percentage of the whole lot is that?
That's, I would say probably about 8. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. I could do the
I
numbers.
think I read somewhere it might be like 90% or so.
It could be somewhere in the 80s to 90s, correct.
And what is it now?
As I mentioned, we didn't really account for anything because it's very difficult to determine what was impervious.
Oh, there's nothing built there now.
There's nothing there now. Yeah, it's an empty
It's all
lot right
parking
now.
lot in the aerial. So the only thing there now is there's ledge there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be totally eliminated?
Yes, that's going to be cut out in order to make room for the building with the retaining
It'll be
wall.
blasting, I assume.
That hasn't been determined as of yet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Randolph.
Oh, I'm sorry, were you going to the line?
No, you're like, whenever somebody raises their hand, just let, get my attention, call on you. And then tell me.
Let me just ask a general question. How will the volume, velocity, and quality of the water coming off the site after the building's there compare to what the volume, velocity, and quality right now?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we detailed in our drainage report. For the 2 through 100-year storm event, we see a reduction in both quantity and rate for the water coming off the site. And
Quality?
And for quality as well, we didn't account for anything in these drainage systems themselves, to be conservative again. So we installed what's called a downstream defender. It's a stormwater treatment system that it's the last step. Every drop of water that gets into these drainage systems that isn't treated by the systems will make its way into that system, that unit, before discharging.
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
So I'm sorry, just to be clear. So right now, there's a parking lot there, and with the building there, the rain flow will be better controlled. Is that correct? Okay. And then the volume of water coming off will be slowed down at the velocity through the drainage basins. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be slowed down and a decreased quantity as
And
well.
then filtered in the basins.
In the basins themselves, and then as a last resort, the downstream defender. Yes.
One question, Mr. Bauer, to your knowledge, does the site currently have any provision for water quality treatment?
No, from what we could find on any information on the site, there's nothing that provides any kind of water quality for this.
Thank you.
Site.
Is there gravel there now?
I believe, yeah, it's a gravel
Gravel
driveway,
parking lot,
but it's
Something like that?
gravel, dirt mix. It's very rough.
Yeah, that's fine. Any other questions for Mr. Bauer at this point? I'm not suggesting you're done.
One other question, and this was, somebody wrote about this one. So, you're gonna be basically, excavating on that northern part.
Yes,
I don't know if this is is this your purview, means and methods?
to a degree, yes.
So, can you explain how that will happen?
So depending on what's encountered as far as ledge goes, it's not really fully determined how it's going to be taken out. It could be hammered, it could be blasted, but it's kind of a determination that would happen as the process moves along, once you go into the building department and all the proper permits would be obtained.
They'll be shoring along that northern wall.
If that's deemed necessary, yes, that certainly would be.
So shoring, there'll be some support on the wall to make sure that nothing collapses. Correct?
I would imagine so, yes. Again, that's something that hasn't fully been determined as of yet, but the building department would ensure that something like that would be put in place.
How do they assure that usually?
You have to pull the proper permits and go through the typical inspections for something of this manner.
And so they'll be monitoring that work as it occurs typically?
I'm not entirely sure what the building department's process, but I imagine, yes, they would be.
If I can try to address that, the first thing I want to just, Commissioner, to talk about is blasting. Preliminary indications that my client has indicated is that we don't think we're gonna have to blast. However, if field conditions dictate that we have to blast, not only will we have to get a blasting permit, from the fire marshal's office and follow all state and local protocols, but the other thing we will do as a matter of self-protection is a pre and post blast surveys, so that if there were going to be any blasting, and this could certainly be a condition, that we would in fact have to do pre and post blast surveys within a proper perimeter, both to protect us and to protect any property owners. As far as your question with regard to the shoring goes, it has been my limited experience in those kind of situations that the building department does take a very hands-on approach to that in terms of when that work is going on, monitoring it and seeing to it that all aspects of the building code are being complied with.
And I'm raising that, that was one of the questions that came up, responded, so I just wanted to.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Wang, can you just make a note of the blasting and the offer to make that a condition of approval? Thank you. I think that's what you said, right? Thank you.
If blasting is necessary.
Of course. Any other questions, Mr. Bauer? Oh, Commissioner Braun.
I see that in the engineering stormwater report, the property is 13,932 square feet. So that means that the impervious surface that that the development will create will be approximately 89% of the square footage of the property.
Yeah, that sounds approximately.
Can you tell me, I'm looking at an aerial. So right now, there's nothing built there. There's kind of like a gravel parking area. There's trees on the north end between, sort of as a buffer with the next house up, which is number 130, I guess, Woodrow. Will those trees be removed, and are those trees above where the blasting will take place, or where the excavation will have to take place because you have to flatten the property out, right?
Only to an extent, but most likely, yes. Any trees that are on our property would need to be taken in order to access that area.
Which site plan is this?
This is our grading and drainage plan.
Does that show the footprint of the building in the gray area?
Yes, yeah, the gray area is the footprint of the building. And then all this white here, as well as this kind of gray, this gray here is the retaining wall that's being proposed, which will also act as the rear of the building.
So it's a parking area between the retaining wall and the gray area of the building?
Yes, as well as under the building as well.
How close is the building to the property known as 130? Is it like 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet?
I believe, yes, it's within 10 feet.
10 feet? So you're building right up to 10 feet of the boundary line? Wow.
Property line, yes. Property line, yes.
No, of the structure.
Excuse me. Well, public will have a chance to talk.
I also have a concern because I worry that if the system does overflow, and by the way, when you consider doing blasting, do you do like a subsurface hydrogeological survey before you do that?
Unfortunately, that's not really my purview. I'm not entirely sure what would go into that.
But you won't know where the water is going to go if you're blasting unless you look underground and, just kind of
As far, you're saying you're worried about like runoff reaching the street?
worried about changing the subsurface hydrogeological structure if you do blasting on a pretty steep ledge right there that has trees over it now. They absorb water as well.
But again, that was kind of taken into account with the construction of the building, where we considered it all impervious that we are collecting, all the new impervious that we are proposing.
Well, if there is water flowing somewhere, it's going to go somewhere, right? So, and there will be no trees left on the north end of the property, right? It looks like it's right up to 10 feet of the boundary line. So
It would depend where the trees exactly sit and what's necessary at the time of
We
construction.
have submitted a landscaping plan and,
I see that's in a separate sheet. Yeah.
Mr. Yes.
It won't be in the back. It'll be more on the front, I suppose.
Mr. Russo of Bill Kenny's office is here, should you have any questions about the landscaping and lighting plan, but there is a landscaping plan that is proposed.
As far as, can you just point out again, the access, the access is on Pease Avenue. Is there a reason the access was not put on Wood Road? It seems like Pease Avenue, you're not the traffic person, I understand, but that's the lower elevation of the property, right? So if there is water down there,
Yes,
that's where you're directing it.
correct. That's where it would all flow.
And so that's also the access point. So isn't there a possibility that that could overflow if you have a flooding event right there where everybody goes in and out of the building?
There shouldn't be too much concern with that. No, the way the drainage is designed is to get it directly, to avoid having any runoff, excess runoff reach Pease Avenue and tie directly into the storm system itself.
And then, so you have 30 parking spots and one of those is a handicap spot, right?
Two of them, yes.
Oh, two.
Yes.
Oh.
There's
And
one
where are
here.
those located? And you said that has a separate access in and out of the parking lot or no?
No, there's a separate access for the refuse area and any maintenance that may need to occur on.
The refuse area is along Pease Avenue when it heads north, not the part that, because Pease Avenue kind of takes a right angle turn when it hooks up with the exit ramp from the highway, right?
No, Pease Avenue ties directly into the access ramp on a
See it right
straight.
there?
Well, doesn't Pease Avenue go up north also?
It may bend. Yeah.
Not at our site.
Not in our site, correct?
Oh, before your site, okay.
Yes.
So, so you're gonna have an access point right next to the next lot up, which is, I don't know the address of that. Where Hair of the Dog is, I guess?
That's correct, where Hair of the Dog is.
So it's gonna be right on that boundary, more or less, kind of. And then another one will be very close to where the intersection of Woodrow is. Awfully close.
Well, within reason, there's only certain ways that we can position the building and still provide adequate access. We did shift it as far over as was feasible in order to give as much space to that intersection as possible.
And the parking that's under the building, that's at grade level, it's not below grade?
Yes, yeah, so you would actually come up a couple feet from Pease into that parking area. That's to allow the natural topography to remain as much as possible.
And how, is there, I don't know if there's a three-dimensional plan in here. Does it go, how far below grade does the building extend? Like, is there a basement or?
No, the bottom floor is the parking.
Oh, thank you.
Who are you?
That's the architect.
Okay.
He comes next.
So there's nothing that how far down into the earth does the building go?
The slab will be poured directly on grade. The footings will be determined by the structural engineer wherever they need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Further, Mr. Bauer?
No, I appreciate your time, and again, I will be here if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Mr. Jameson. This is our architect, Jameson. He will give you an overview of exterior design, building materials, and a brief overview of the interior floor plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for hearing our proposal tonight. James Jameson, J.A. Jameson Architects out of Weston. Been practicing in Connecticut since 1982. I have come before this board several times in the past. We just got hot off the press as a rendering for the project, which is why it was not in the original documents that we submitted. Architecturally, you can see every unit has an outdoor balcony, some of them up to 14 feet wide, so there's some outdoor space. We used a gambrel roof design in order to give the building a more residential scale rather than building a big square box, which you see a lot of the apartment buildings these days. So this may be a little easier to understand the ingress and egress of the building. So coming down E's here, we have an entrance into the parking garage here, which is 2 lanes in, 2 lanes up, take a dog leg. There's our turnaround. First handicap space right off an entrance to the building. A second entrance here, which is strictly for loading and refuse. So we separated the trucks from the cars, just from a practical standpoint, and also people moving in, moving out, that sort of thing. At grade level, we have a bike storage rack here, main entry area, and an elevator up and a stairwell up. The second stairwell is only on the second floor, sitting out the back of the building.
Some clearance for the parking garage.
Parking garage, we need a minimum of 8'6" for the handicap van. This is the van space, which has to be wider than.
What is that? What is it? Is it 8?
Yeah, it's 8.5, 8'9". You know, we're trying to keep it
Which is fine, I just want to know what it is.
Enough to meet code, but also trying to keep the building as low as possible.
Thank you.
Do you have an extra area for recycling so that they don't end up wandering out of the street?
Yes, we've two, one for refuse and one for recycling.
Harrison?
Question, for the one bedroom units, there are 14 of them. Are there dens in these units?
No, they're strictly one bedroom. So basically, that way they can't be converted to a two bedroom.
That's what I was gonna ask you.
Two, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm dealing with that in Weston now with the ADUs because you can only have one bedroom, 800 square feet. And everybody says, well, can we? No, you can't. The buildings are basically a double loaded corridor. This side facing the street, this side facing easterly. And there are 2 floors that match this. There's also a communal storage room for everyone's suitcases or whatever. So second and third floor are essentially identical. On the 4th floor, coming off the elevator, we have a communal room, which will have an exercise area, a terrace, and a sitting area with a handicap bathroom in it. So people have a place where they can congregate and have a party. And
That's on the top floor?
just on the top floor, yes. Which, we'll have a great view out over 95, but it'll still have a great view. And that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of it.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Questions for Mr. Jamison?
I have to say it's a great design. I mean,
Thank you.
we're used to seeing gray boxes.
Yeah.
It's good to see something a little different.
And we're, up against the residential area, so trying to keep it in that venue. And the nice thing about this site is that since it does slope up, the far end of the building is technically only 3 stories, so it really helps reduce the scale of the building. So the site is actually, helping us fit it into the site.
Commissioner Pikowski?
The dumpsters are underneath the building fully.
No, they're not. They're not under the building. They're to the right and outside.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Braun?
45 feet tall at the top of those.
On the front, right, on the front.
So if it goes down at the back, you still have the
Goes
same.
up in the back.
stories, right?
The back goes up.
I'm sorry. Where's the back? The back,
So on the P's out, on the street side, we're 45 feet. But the street actually is sloping up, so we're about 37 and change on the side abutting the residential area.
I can understand that better.
So, could you just,
Commissioner Braun, are you?
I'm sorry.
Building doesn't change its height just because it goes up a hill, right?
Yes, it does. Because you take the average between the lowest point, which is at the top, at this edge of the building, abutting the residential area.
But you have the same number of stories there though, right?
Yes, you do.
So is part of it underground then, or?
Well, this parking garage back here will essentially be underground.
Oh, now I understand
Yeah.
that. So it's basically a 3-story.
Cut like a wedge. Yeah, the property's a wedge, so it's sort of cut into the wedge.
So it's 3 floors over parking.
Correct.
That's
Right.
the building.
That's
And part of it in the back goes a little bit underground.
right. The
much underground is that?
parking is underground in the backside. So
How deep down, how far down does it go? Because I thought it was all built on slab. So part of it will be underground, under
Yes,
grade.
right.
How far deep does it go?
For basically the depth of the
8 feet?
parking lot, probably 8-10 feet, something like that.
So in the back, it'll be 8 to 10 feet below grade.
And in the zone where we could build a building with 4 stories, so essentially we're conforming with the allowable number of stories.
The materials?
Commissioner Randolph? Just give me a.
Yeah, what are the materials?
Okay, the materials that we're basically thinking that this is going to be clapboard siding, probably 6-7 inches exposure, asphalt shingle roof, and white windows, not black.
The base?
The base, we're planning on having a brick along the uphill side, so that'll be sort of a masonry base there. And that may be brick color, or we may paint it out white.
Mikowski?
Can you talk about what abuts this property?
Yeah, we have, what's, what do we need here?
You're looking for the overall.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best.
Not back there, right?
That's right.
So we are here. There's the one-story existing building right there, which is brick on the side. That's I know there was a restaurant there and I think a dog groomer.
It's commercial
And
property. yes.
Across the street is a veterinary hospital. And down here you have a giant billboard advertising,
The dragon.
yes. You got it.
North.
And then to the north, this is single-family residential to the north.
And Peace Ave going up is single-family residential too.
Yes, right, and then, so this is our, basically the little commercial zone here, and then it flips over into residential.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Harrison.
Actually, I'm not sure if this is applicable for you, but so there's one EV charging station.
Three.
There are three?
There are three.
Three for 23 units. Have we thought about putting in more? I'm just looking at the trends in the country. In Connecticut, we're looking at more EV future versus gas cars.
Actually, it's a state statute now that came into effect, I think, last year. I forget was it two? We comply with the new state statute. But to answer your question, we could always look at it.
Yeah.
But there is a state statute now.
10%.
10%. Yeah, that's right. So we would have to have three.
State 32 applications, they apply to those kind of
That's
things.
a good question. It's a state statute, but by equivalent, right, as Commissioner Harrison,
I mean,
said,
just-
it's the trend and,
Just crossed my mind.
any developer who's not providing,
Connecticut may want to end gas powered cars at some point. in the near future.
2030.
Whole nother debate.
2035.
Looking ahead.
Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, so there's 23 units
Mhm.
and 9 of them are 2-bedroom. That makes it 32 bedrooms. So the parking, our normal regulations would require, it doesn't go by bedroom, but it goes by unit, but it would require 69 parking spaces as opposed to the 30 that it supports. So as you pointed out, it's 1.3 spaces per unit.
Correct.
But it's really only 0.93 spaces per bedroom. I always assume you might have one car per bedroom. But where is the overflow parking going to go?
we don't believe that with the parking, based upon the experience that we've had in other communities, we don't believe with this unit mix and with the type of tenants that this kind of a development is going to bring, that we're gonna have a need for overflow parking. Will there be times if somebody throws, a 25th anniversary party? Then sure, they'll have to make some arrangements, but we're not parking for that. What we're parking for is what's adequate parking considering the unit mix and the likely tenant mix. And again, we believe that 30 spaces is adequate, and that's kind of been proven out by a lot of projects that have been approved here in Fairfield, 8-30G.
Well, I know you bring up sometimes the one up off of,
Moritz?
yeah, that one.
Mhm.
But that's different because you can walk to the store there. You can't really walk anywhere from here.
Gee, I don't know. I mean, I think you'd want to be careful.
I don't know how you would cross any.
Right, it's well, people do it. I mean, people do walk into the village and stuff, I'm sure, from Woodrow and Peace, but you have to cross at the proper crosswalks and you have to be careful.
How would you even cross the post road from here? How would you?
It's illegal. There's a sign there.
Okay, thank you, but
So, but in terms of parking, again, there's the legal answer to parking and then there's the practical answer. I mean, I welcome you to take a look at the quality of some of the developments that have recently been completed by my client. By the way, Mr. Coco is the principal of the LLC and is really the applicant, the developer, the builder. And if you see the projects that he's recently completed on, for example, Oldfield Road, you'll see the quality. And I think it's born in, the plan here to do something that is attractive and isn't a box. But to get back to the parking, we know based upon leasing what the parking needs are for tenants in developments with this kind of a unit and bedroom mix. And the parking ratio of 1 to 3 will work here.
is there
I'm working on Oldfield Road right now.
I read one of the letters that we got from one of the residents that there's been an offering of public parking nearby. Is that part of this application or no?
I'm not, I read the letters that were submitted. I overlooked whatever that was.
No provision for parking off-site.
No,
It's
not
just
for
what's
us.
site. And is there parking on the street allowed?
There's no restriction on parking that I'm aware of, but I don't know that there's a lot of parking on the street other than by maybe residents on Woodrow and maybe Pease. It's not restricted, but I don't know what the parking patterns are.
There's no parking on that, let's just say the extension of the off-ramp of Pease, right? As far as I know.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Pikowski?
One more clarifying question around the positioning of the building to the property that is directly behind it, the residential property. So you were saying, can you just talk a little bit about how close to the property line, like where does,
Do you want to use a site plan, Jim?
No.
so how much, just to give us an idea of like what will be building and that home?
Into the building, and we're about 3.5 feet from the property line.
Okay, and then that line right there, those two, that alley right there represents, so that's very skinny alley, but then the wider alley behind that represents what? On top of
This is
that,
just a dimension line.
okay,
That's the property line is right here. So it's 3.5 feet, so it does give us room to do some buffer planning.
okay, which would mean like, what?
Yes, giants or
Okay,
something evergreen that, yeah, we do have some space there. And also, none of the units have windows overlooking the residential area, just for a matter of privacy.
okay. And there'll, obviously then there are no balconies on that side and,
Try to keep it as private as possible.
okay,
And, the building, actually, the next door neighbor probably gets a little bit of break from the highway noise.
The landscaping plan does show at the area commissioner, you're talking about a privacy fence and low ornamental ground covering.
Okay.
So that's there. If the commission were to have other ideas, that's something you could think about. The only thing that Russo advises me is that it's not an area that's going to be conducive to a lot of hardy growth because of sunlight and other things. But we do make provision as it stands now in the application in front of you for a privacy fence with low ornamental plantings along that property line.
and from that side, you won't see the garage because it will be built in. So
Correct.
you'll just see
Correct.
structure.
Correct.
Commissioner Braun?
So I thought it was 10 feet from the edge of the building to the next property line, but you said it's 3 feet?
3.5.
So it's not 10 feet, it's
No.
3 feet.
3.5.
I don't know what you could plant in 3.5 feet that could buffer it, like arborvitae's or something?
Well, as I said, right now, we are in the landscaping plan that's before you. We are proposing a privacy fence with low ground cover ornamentals. So,
But this is 45 feet tall, so, yeah.
yeah, but there is some provision for,
Are you the person to talk about the landscaping plan, or is that?
that would be,
That would be
he's here, he could be next, whenever he's here to answer any question.
All set, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to, since we've, do you want to have any questions of Justin for landscaping before we go to traffic or, geez?
Any questions for landscaping?
I probably will have questions, but I don't want to order your proceeding.
No, and well, the other thing is too, we're obviously not going to finish tonight and you may not have had an opportunity to look carefully at the landscaping plan. So, you can be back with us January 9th. I can. There you go. So, Mr. Sepola, come forward and give us the overview of your traffic report. I apologize for stealing a lot of your thunder, but I felt it was important straight on up to talk a little bit about traffic. But I'll let the expert do that now. Mr. Sepola.
Thank you, John. For the record, Steve Sepola, Senior Traffic Engineer with RDC in Hanover. We conducted the traffic evaluation for the proposed 23 units. As part of our evaluation, we installed a automatic traffic recorder, the little rubber tubes that you see across the roads, for about a 1-week period in May of 2023 along the site frontage. The ATR picked up volume by direction, and it captured all types of vehicles ranging from a motorcycle up to a tractor trailer. So it captured any vehicle that was traveling on Keys Road. The ATR also captured the 85th percentile operational speed on Peace Road, which I'll get to later, which was used for our intersection sight distance and stopping sight distance analysis. Okay, so our ATR found that Peace Avenue along the site frontage carries 7,637 vehicles over a 24-hour period for a typical day, peaking at from 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning at 786 vehicles, and again around 2 to 3 with 444 vehicles. As you can see on the graphic, most of the traffic is traveling in the westbound direction, which is typical for Peace Road as it operates as essentially a I-95 southbound off-ramp connection to US Route 1. As Attorney Fallon stated, traffic volumes on this section of road can vary day to day based on activities or incidents that occur on I-95. As if there's an incident on I-95, motorists will tend to get off at exit 19 because it's an easy access to US Route 1, which is a alternative route. So typically our traffic studies look at a typical day, and that's all traffic studies look at typical. We don't analyze or design for an incident on I-95. In our evaluation, we collected the latest available crash data from the Connecticut Crash Data Repository. At the time of the study, the latest was from January 2020 through December of 2022. Based on our search on the database, there was no reported crashes during this 3-year period on Peace Avenue, at Woodrow, or at the ramp or the section along the site frontage.
Interrupt you with a quick question?
Yes.
Not sure.
Yeah, just for the crash data, so you started what, 12/31/22? No, you started March, where did you, what did you start?
January
Thank you.
1st, 2020
Okay,
to December 31st. So 3 full years.
so I guess my question is, at least a good year to have, we were in COVID lockdown, that started what, March 12th, 2020?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, do you think this is an accurate reflection of what day-to-day traffic would be like in today's world?
I'm actually gonna.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I didn't mean to upset you.
Yeah, no, so this, I'm hoping this answers, so in essence, the report was conducted in May, so really 2023 data wasn't available at the time. Since we're having the meeting at this point, we and comments from the public, we've looked at the database to get, and data is pretty much up to date till the end of September of 2023. So I have an additional 9 months of data. And that also, that during that 9 months showed no accidents in the 2 intersections along that site frontage. So for about 3 years, 9 months, there hasn't been any accidents. Getting back to the years that were used, we have in other traffic studies in other in other municipalities, we have been using the data that included portions of 2020 and has been accepted. The reason why is data prior to the pandemic now is starting to get pretty outdated. It's 5, 6 years old. And also traffic patterns and volume levels have changed significantly post-pandemic. And also, I think Peace Avenue was paved, I think, 2020, 2021, so pretty recently. So typically we see when a road is paved, that also changes a little bit of the characteristics of driver characteristics. So that's why we feel that those 3 years plus the additional 9 months that we've just pulled from the repository gives a good sample of crash history.
Because the neighbors have reported there were at least 9 traffic crashes, I think, between 2021, 2023. So are they wrong?
This is pulled directly from the Connecticut Crash Data Repository, which is taken from crash reports that are provided by the Fairfield Police Department. I can only go by what is provided in the database.
They include all interactions with the Fairfield Police Department?
Yes, they're supposed to, Fairfield Police is supposed to provide all the reports, and then they summarize it and put it into their database.
Commissioner Braun?
On the accidents again, which intersection were you getting accident data from? Is it Pease and Woodrow or Pease and the Post Road?
No.
Pease and Kings Highway.
It's Woodrow and Pease, and at the ramp and along the site frontage here where the access drive is going to be.
So it's the stretch of Pease where it turns and becomes kind of like a continuation of the off ramp.
It's
down to where
it's the continuation of the off ramp to
where Woodrow is, but not to the Post Road.
Not to the Post
Road. I'm looking at I'm looking at the old medical building approval that Attorney Fallon presented us, and back then, now that was a while ago, that was in a 3-year period from 04 to 07, there were 24 accidents at the Post Road intersection with Pease. 12 had injuries, 12 were rear enders. So now that's older, and it's also slightly different intersection, but is there a reason that didn't look at that intersection as well of Pease and the Post Road? Because this will have some impact on that.
No.
Especially the egress is right there on that corner approaching the Post Road.
Our concern getting into the crash history was to look along the site frontage and in the vicinity of the site to see if there was any safety concerns along here. At this intersection, as I get further into
The Post Road intersection?
The Post Road intersection, the level of increase in traffic that we're proposing there doesn't want us to look or first analyze that intersection, but also to look at the crash data as we're adding less than 1% during the critical AM peak hour. So that's why we didn't look at this intersection when it comes to the crash data. We've only looked along the site frontage here and the adjacent intersections.
Commissioner Harrison?
I have a question. For the data that you got from the CCDR, you said you have data post December 2022? Is that what you said?
What was provided in the report was provided January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2022.
Okay. Is there a reason why you didn't go beyond?
Well, at that time, typically it takes about 3 or 4 months and it was March, it was April, May at that point. So we were only going to get an extra month or 2 at that point. So we didn't see the need to provide that additional month or 2 because we were providing what is mandatory, which is a 3-year period. But now that, it's later on in the year and concerns by the residents, we wanted to look and see what has happened in those 9 months that now are available to see if anything has changed, which it has.
Say it again, has not changed.
It has not changed. Thank you. Okay, that was an accident. We also looked at at Pease Avenue here. The roadway width ranges from 26 to 30 feet, which is more than sufficient for vehicular two-way traffic and tractor-trailer traffic. We also looked at Woodrow Avenue, which ranges from 22 to 26 feet. And for Woodrow Avenue, there's no restrictions for on-street parking on any side. So you can park on any side of the street. So for 22 to 26, it's kind of narrow for on-street parking. But the town doesn't regulate no parking on either side. Based on the latest Institute of Transportation Engineers Traffic Generation Manual, which is a manual that has many different types of land uses. It provides trip rates for in this case, for residential based on the number of units, which for 23 units, it found that there was a total of 9 vehicles during the morning and 12 vehicles during the afternoon peak hour. As Attorney Fallon mentioned, the previous approval for the office building generated 15 vehicles both morning and afternoon, so slightly higher than what we're proposing with the 23 units. Again, as Attorney Fallon mentioned, that the site is located in a design commercial district, and many of the land uses that he described would generate higher traffic levels than what's being proposed. It would have a more significant impacts on traffic operations than what we're proposing here.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry. So the ITE trip generation data manual, does that track local data?
No, it has data from throughout the United States. I believe the residential, because this has come up in another hearing, I believe the residential does has data samples from Connecticut mixed in.
So the data that we have though may not be Connecticut, may not be Southport, could be LA, could be Boise, Idaho. I don't know.
It's a mix of multiple states. I think it's something like 10 different states around. So it mixes, more Connecticut to more rural. So it gives a better average rate of what could be generated. And Connecticut DOT pretty much on all the developments go to ITE and request that any studies submitted to them uses the ITE chip. That's their go-to for most of the typical developments, especially a residential of this type. They would want ITE rates.
No, I know that ITE is standard, and I just don't see how, something that has 23 units would generate 7 trips in the morning. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around that one.
Just to try to help that a little bit, if I could, without being presumptuous, these 8-30Gs, and I think you can see it in a lot of the ones that we've been usually involved in. What I said at the outset is true. They generally find their market with people older than 50 and or young people, want to be in Fairfield, want to stay in Fairfield, whatever, especially with regard to that demographic of the over 50 people my age. Over 50. He hasn't seen 50 in a long time. But they're people who really don't contribute to the peak hour, right? Because a lot of them are retired. A lot of them are, working part-time, coming in at different hours. And even with the other demographic that plays an important part in terms of younger people, so many of them work at least part-time now, remotely or off hours. So again, it's been practical experience in development such as this that Mr. Coco has had, and I've had with other clients, where because of the nature of the market, you don't see a big impact, and that these numbers are very reliable, the 9 and 12, because of those factors. That's my impressions.
Just kind of as an example, someone who might, work in the city might leave, 6 or 6:30 to catch the train. Someone who works in Stanford may leave a little bit later. And someone who works more locally will leave, 8 to 9. So we're saying that 9 is in a 1 hour period. Whereas, realistically, the units might be spread out over a 3 hour period. So it's 9 and 12 is for 1 hour.
And these units really do have a lot of attraction for empty nesters and snowbird type people. So that again impacts how they impact traffic at different times of years. I'm sorry.
Let me just ask one question on trip generation. So your numbers are those that are required by the state of Connecticut. You use the ITE numbers.
Correct, yes.
So, and how often are they updated?
The recent manual was from 2021. That's the recent.
And, compared to other developments, have you found this, because we always look at this one point of this trip generation in disbelief. Have you looked at other buildings to see whether the ITE numbers apply? Because it is hard to believe.
Yes, no, that's not, post-COVID, but we have, counted, residential developments to compare trip rates to ITE, and they're pretty close. They're well within, an appropriate range of acceptability. What we've counted at, existing operating developments to what the ITE is saying. Yes, we have found that in the past.
Thanks.
Yes.
You know, so
Any questions? Feel free to continue.
Okay.
Questions.
Great. So as I mentioned before, the ATR also collected the 85th percentile speed along East Avenue, which is about 24 miles an hour. The intersection site distance requirements based on the Connecticut Department of Transportation standards. Says that 265 feet is required in both directions. We provide over 265 feet in both directions.
We're one way though, right?
No, it's two-way here.
Okay.
It's two-way flow, but most of the traffic is traveling westbound. It's very light eastbound. But we have to account because it's two-way.
Okay.
And then we also looked at the stopping site distance along for vehicles coming off the ramp or coming, making the right off. And the vehicles will be able to have sufficient stopping site distance to our proposed site driveway. Therefore, sufficient sight lines are provided for the driveway location we're proposing.
What time of day did you do the speed analysis?
Oh, the speed was part of the ATR, so it's a 7-day period. So it captures, when there's queuing, and it also captures free flow. So
It's 24 miles per hour though, includes everything you said.
It includes everything, and that's what's required by DOT and what we've provided for the town on pretty much all of our studies is we try to provide 7 days worth of data to give appropriate data samples.
Town engineer review this?
the town engineer received a copy of the traffic report, yes.
Right, and I'm not sure, has he made comments one way or the other?
I am not aware that there's been any comments, no.
Okay, because the concern I have is if you're including the idle times in the speed analysis, and when we get to non-idle times, obviously that's going to be taken out and the average is going to, go up. How do we account for that?
Can you address that, Steve?
Yes, no, this is something Connecticut DOT and their guidelines say that you take an average, of both, free flow and typical condition. That you don't just do just the free flow and that's it. You have to take, both operating conditions. Typically, if you would do like a spot count. DOT typically likes, 100 data samples. They typically like it to be done when, it's during a typical operations during peak hours is typically when they look for. In this case, we're providing, the 7-day average.
Did you submit the data to us, the speed generation counts to us?
Yeah, it's in the appendix.
Do you know, like, I can do it myself, but are you able to kind of give an estimate what the free flow speed would be? Do it now, but I imagine that would be, what's a good time? I don't know, mid-afternoon, maybe, early afternoon, maybe 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just basically looking through the data, and the data generally is saying, the highest pace speed range is from 21 to 30. So there's really nothing over a range over 30 miles an hour, which is to be expected because you do have the stop sign right here and it's a short distance away. So speed shouldn't be too high, even during,
Is there a stop sign at Woodrow Ave and Peace?
at the off ramp.
Okay, but there's not one extra block down.
There's one on Peace as well.
It's kind of an optional stop sign, I find.
Yeah, but it's there. You're right. You're right. It's
I
there.
would never do that, but
The one off the off ramp though, but on Woodrow and Peace, there's not.
There's not one there. No.
But all those numbers are in the back of the report.
No, thank you. Yeah, nothing is committed to memory yet. Questions?
can I ask a quick question? In some applications in the past, and I don't see them that much anymore, we do service level grades at the intersections. Is that applicable here? Like A, B, C, D, F, the intersection of P's, Woodrow, or Post Road?
Yeah, in this case, based on the level of traffic that's being added, it didn't warrant the need to analyze any of the intersections because the volume levels were in the range of, one vehicle every 8 to 9 minutes during the morning. What
would trigger that type of analysis? Because this is kind of a unique intersection. You have a lot of traffic backed up coming off the highway. Then you also have Maplewood that was built in recent years that probably comes down there to get to the Post Road or the highway.
Maplewood doesn't have access to Peace Road, right, John?
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I believe it's,
I thought it was an emergency.
maybe it's.
Like it might, so let's assume.
Oh, it's right up Pease, isn't it?
Right of Peace, but I think.
No, it's up, yeah, it's up.
Emergency.
It was right up Pease, literally.
It's just emergency.
It's just emergency. They have to go up.
Gated emergency
They
access.
have to go up to Mill Hill.
Okay.
So they won't be coming through this, they won't be affecting this area.
How much more do you have?
I'm pretty much done. I'm just summing up, as Attorney Fallon said, that
Let's ask, because we're 2 minutes past. If you're gonna finish up, well, he'll be back anyways. Well, Commissioner Harrison, go ahead.
I had a question on page 83 of the report. I distant.
Intersection. Good.
I think that's my.
It's my 83.
Okay.
It's not his 83. He's like, what are you doing? But he's got it.
It's table 2.
Table 2, yes.
So ISD to the left, just the requirement is it's 85th percentile speed, same for to the right. And then on Pequot Avenue, it's also the 85th percentile speed of vehicles. So I guess I'm kind of curious, how do we just happen to have the required number? I'm just kind of, we have to have, the requirement is 85th speed, right?
Yeah, we're providing the Connecticut DOT intersection site distance requirement for the 85th percentile speed of 24 miles an hour. It's a calculation of using a formula. We input the 85th percentile speed into a formula to come up with the requirement that's for site for intersection.
So then I guess in the notes section, it says the 85th percentile speed of vehicles on Pequot Avenue. So,
That must have been I believe that should be Pease Avenue.
okay.
I apologize.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
Yeah,
you.
that should have been Pease. It must have been a typo.
Do you have the exact?
Can we It's 5 after.
I was just gonna say, for next time, can you give us the number?
Oh, that's fine.
In other words, what the
Actual
actual
distance.
sightline is, I think we have that information.
That's good.
You want, as long as that comes,
Next time, I
I
don't.
knew you'd want to see that.
I give it to you right
We did it.
quickly. It's,
Thank you, by the way.
265 feet or greater from our
So
driveway.
you're
From which
you're on
side?
the microphone, so can you just take that off? Sorry, thank you. That's okay.
This is the site distance plan for the record, so that if you want to look at it, and
I think I in the
David,
text, so
you want to just speak to that?
Yeah, so the,
yeah, I have the, so intersection site distance to the off ramp is 287 feet. So
The off ramp to what? To which access driveway?
the one where people will
the
be
driveway,
entering and exiting.
driveway to the ramp. Look, so looking left out of the driveway is 287 feet. 265 feet is required. Looking to the right, it's 270 feet, and we're providing 265.
It's 265 is required, and you're providing 270.
We're providing 270,
Right.
requires 265.
And that is not only on this drawing, which is this part of, have we submitted this?
Yes, this was,
So this is part of the drawing site distance plan, and it's also, where were you quoting from in your report? Where was that?
That's on page 2, under site access considerations.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna stop there. We're a little past our curve. We'll pick up our next meeting on January 9th, correct, Mr. Went? Everybody, Mr. Went? January 9th, we will reconvene at our next meeting. We will pick up where we left off. Finishing up their presentation, the applicant's presentation, and moving to public comments.
Thank you all very much, and a very happy holiday.
Happy holidays to everyone.
To celebrate whatever it is, enjoy with your family.
We'll not close this hearing, but adjourn it till next time. Yes.